Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Films and Stuff podcast. I'm Ethan, joined, as always, by most valuable Pete. Hey, Pete, good morning to you.
How are you, buddy?
Everything is great. We are hot off the presses, ready to do a review today about Tron Ares.
Yeah, that's right. To be honest, it's a movie that kind of snuck up on me. I didn't even realize they were making a Tron movie until I saw the first trailer a couple months ago.
The same thing. I feel like there's some movies, F1 being an example, that are just like, come at me in like waves and waves and waves. And like every time I go to the cinema, there's a trailer. Every time I open up, like a website, there's a pop-up or something. Tron, which is not a small franchise, it's a Disney movie. It just kind of popped up. Hey, we're here. Don't forget about us, coming out in October. So tell me, before we get into it, you literally saw it less than 24 hours ago. I literally just came home from it. What's your relationship with the Tron franchise? This started in 1982.
So I saw Tron, the first movie, not in the cinema, but on television.
Okay.
Blown away by it. Probably one of the first few sci-fi movies that really got me outside of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Cyberpunkish. There was a lot of like CGI, genuine CGI in it, right? So
Right.
It was pretty cool. Like I was just like, wow, I can't believe you can do these kinds of things. Now, 30 years later, you have Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved that movie. Look, the story was so-so, but I loved it because it captured the vibes of the grid almost perfectly.
Yeah, it's crazy that 15 years to make Ares.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I saw the original Tron in theaters or television. Given my childhood, it seems highly unlikely I would have seen this like in a cinema. Like my parents are not the type of people that take me to like a sci-fi movie like this.
Certainly not at that age.
Yeah, that's true. Also at that age. But I do remember watching the original Tron. And at the time, I think it was like groundbreaking, right? Like the blue neon and the orange neon. And like at the time, it was really something. Now, when you look back on it, it is cyberpunk and it's aged relatively well in that context. But like back in the day, it was like, whoa, this is the future, totally different than like Star Wars or E.T. imagined, like sci-fi stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was aliens, but it wasn't like tech. It wasn't about the technology. It was about the fantastical story.
When I was watching it, I think I could not have articulated the plot, probably because I was a little bit young and probably because the plot is a little bit fuzzy. Okay, we get it now. It makes a little bit more sense watching it. I do remember seeing Tron Legacy, which I agree was a very faithful sequel. I feel like I had a generally positive feeling towards it, but not like, oh man, like I need Tron backpack or Tron hat or Tron pillow sheets, now, but it was very faithful. Jeff Bridges was in it. It was very, I think, consistent storyline. I'm going to give you a hot take. I loved Tron Ares, maybe my favorite film of the year.
Whoa. Okay.
I thought it was fantastic for many, many different reasons. One, while not an original IP, it's not a superhero movie. Two, I thought the way that they, not just the graphics, which I think are super stunning, especially on a big screen, but the way that they incorporated the graphics into like real life, I thought was superb. Like sometimes when you see films and it's like, oh, their budget is 400 million. And I say, Pete, why is the budget so high? You're like, oh, CGI. I'm like, what was the CGI? This, I could see the budget being super high because like the way they did the graphics overlaid on like real life, I thought was just wow. And the second part of that is not just with the graphics wow, but like they were rational. They made sense. It wasn't just aliens pouring out of the porthole in the middle of Chicago. Like they really, really made sense. I thought it was very thoughtful. And then the third thing I liked about it was the storyline kind of realistic and made sense. There weren't any like big mental leaps to make. That's a very clear, straightforward storyline. Everyone's got a very good arc. Set itself up for a sequel, of course. I liked it. I loved it. I was super happy with it.
First of all, budget 180 million.
Okay.
I think they overspent on this movie. I liked the film overall, but
Okay.
I don't think I liked it as much as you did. In fact, I know I didn't.
Yeah.
Let's break it down. So, in terms of the storyline, I thought it's very predictable.
It is. I mean,
Right.
there's nothing.
And there's nothing wrong with that, by the
Yeah.
way. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
sometimes it's refreshing to see something simple. This
Yeah.
was as simple as it gets. We're doing spoiler alerts as we always do. So, spoiler alert.
Yep.
The basic premise of the story is that you have the two rival video game companies, and I use that term very loosely. You have Encom, which was like the good guys from the original movie. You have Dillinger Systems, which is the bad guys from the original movie. They weren't really a part of Legacy at all.
No.
They both are in a race to come up with a technology that allows for the physical manifestation of the digital world into the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas before the movies were all about getting the real world into the grid, into their version of the Matrix, right? This
Yep.
online virtual reality world. Now it's about saying, hey, we can use this virtual reality to create all sorts of crazy technologies, military, medical research, etc. But how do we get that out? Well, we can use these 3D laser printing to basically create a physical version of anything that you can create online.
Yep.
However, the catch is those things that you create offline can only last for 29 minutes before they disintegrate.
Yep.
The CEO of Encom, played by Greta Lee, has found the permanence code, which when implanted will allow you to have digital beings made into the real world and last forever.
Mm-hmm.
The way they did it was like they created an orange tree in the middle of Alaska in the middle of a snowstorm. The orange tree was healthy, it had proper fruit in it. That's how you can theoretically solve world hunger and blah, blah, blah. Anyway,
Yeah.
Dillinger is after the same thing. They chase each other and he's trying to steal the code back. And that's effectively what the main arc of the story is.
Yep.
And then you have Jared Leto, who plays Dillinger's main henchman. He starts gaining emotions and he starts questioning his creator, who's the bad guy. And then, as you would expect, he flips and he turns on the bad guy and blah, blah, blah.
With help from Jeff Bridges, the original Flynn.
So I thought the film was absolutely fine in that regard. I thought the effects were, when we see the effects, I thought the effects were fantastic.
Yeah.
I thought the soundtrack was so-so.
Oh, really? Okay.
The caveat is, after seeing this movie, I got home and streamed Tron Legacy. In isolation, the soundtrack is pretty good. This one was done by Nine Inch Nails. The last was done by Daft Punk. I would have said after seeing this movie, it was like an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. But then I sat and watched Tron Legacy with Daft Punk's soundtrack, and I was like, oh man, that's even better. And so I knocked that down a couple of points.
I agree with you that the Tron Legacy soundtrack is one of the few soundtracks that I think really stands out from a film like that. And I think that's probably in its own like kind of GOAT category.
Yeah.
I thought the soundtrack on its own was more than very solid, like a soundtrack that I would probably listen to on a standalone basis, or at least the sense that I recognized it during the film and I
Yeah,
was like, wow, this is pretty good music, you know?
100%. It really added to the quote unquote vibe of the movie.
Yeah,
Even if you didn't like the movie's plot, because
yeah,
ultimately it boils down to chasing after a MacGuffin, right? The whole permanence code. You could sit down and tolerate the whole 2 hours of it because the visuals were pretty cool and the soundtrack was spectacular. Anyway, so going back, for me, a couple of things that could have made this movie even better. The permanence code. First of all, I get it. You want to have a way to make sure that the things that are created in the digital world, like you want to create some impetus as to why you're chasing after this MacGuffin. But, 29 minutes, it was that whole concept for me was a little underbaked. Why 29 minutes? Why aren't you able to do that? Especially because in the last movie, Olivia Wilde's character escapes the digital world, goes to the real world, theoretically to live happily ever after. There's no
yeah.
explanation as to why this is all of a sudden a new problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you that 29 minutes is very arbitrary.
Right.
I think I didn't really understand that for like military vehicles because they are physically like 3D printed.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they would derez the Ares and the Athena type characters. I can understand why maybe they don't derez, but they just cease to function after 29 minutes. I mean, they could have come up with something like, look, there needs to be a connection, or they're not human, or we don't have enough battery or power source or something. I think there could have been a better explanation.
Just a little arbitrary in the sense
Yeah.
that, look, you could have spent 2, 3 lines
Yeah.
explaining that. That would have gone a long way to kind of justifying the chase after this code. I didn't understand that. The other thing I didn't understand was the grid was something that was created by Jeff Bridges' character through his servers, right? But
Right.
now it appears that the grid depends on your server farm. So like everyone's got their own grid, I guess.
If you get into the technology of this, it's very fluffy, not really intended for a very deep kind of like technical assessment.
Yeah.
But I get the point. So there's a one scene where I guess it was Dillinger was doing kind of like a data breach, right, into the NCOM systems.
That was I'm so happy you mentioned that because I have thoughts about that as well. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I thought the way that they embodied what is really a technological activity through kind of like people, I thought was a really, really cool way to depict or illustrate that type of like
Absolutely.
security breach, you
Yeah,
know?
they anthropomorphized hacking really
Yeah.
well. To have them show what it looks like when
Yeah.
programs physically break in through your firewall, gain access to your data systems, that I thought was fantastic. I thought that was done really
Yeah.
well.
Okay, let's consider my mom one level of layperson, you and I a different level. When you tell my mom like, oh, there's a breach or there's a firewall or there's something, she kind of gets it like someone's stolen something from her computer, but that's like kind of the level of understanding of what that is. I'd say you and I are at a little bit of a more sophisticated level where we kind of understand, the high level terminology to use and how it's happened. But I think it's fair to say you and I are nowhere near either computer scientist level or data security expert level where we could really explain kind of how that happened. So I agree. The way that they kind of depicted that, I thought was a very useful and cool way to kind of show like, just think of it like this, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and that's what the Matrix did really well.
Yeah.
Like the idea of showing programs as people. and
Yes.
hacked programs and how they work and the sequence with the back doors, the keys, the universal keys. I thought that was fantastic. And that's
Yeah.
what I thought was really good about this. And I
Yeah.
think that's why I was so not upset, but that's where I was just like, there was a lot of lost potential in this movie because of it. Because if you compare this to Tron Legacy, 90% of Tron Legacy takes place on the grid, right? Maybe
Right.
95% of the movie takes
Yeah.
place on the grid. So that allows you to show this fantastical world, right? And take creative liberties that you can't otherwise based on the real. This movie, maybe even 80% of it, takes place in the real world, and only a few scenes are in the grid.
Yeah.
So like the thing that's about Tron is like going on the grid, and like that's kind of like the emotional reality of Tron is like you want to see the grid. You don't really want to see two people running through downtown San Francisco or having this chase sequence through San Francisco being chased by a huge 3D printed robot. Like you could have done that on the grid as well.
I mean, that's true, but I think that's how, a lot of third or multiple installments, shift the narrative a little bit, which is, well, we've already kind of, I don't want to say they've exhausted the grid. They haven't, but it's already been done. So it's like, okay, well, let's introduce a fresh element. You've seen this before, right? So they've
Yeah.
kind of done it this way. It seems as though the way that now they've set it up, spoiler alert, the next installment, which seems to absolutely be coming, will take place back on the grid, right?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so because like
Yeah.
the best part of the movie was the hacking sequence, right? In terms of the
Yes.
visuals, in terms of you
Yeah.
felt the tension. And I thought they could have easily replicated the same thing for the last act of the movie because the last act of the movie, you have two things going on at the same time. You see Greta Lee's character being chased, but
Yeah.
simultaneously, her friends are up in Encom Tower and they are trying to hack into Dillinger's
Dillinger. Yeah.
systems. So why couldn't they have now gone the other way and showed us on the grid them counter hacking? I thought that would have been so
You're right.
good.
That's a very good idea. And that takes me back to kind of Inception, where there's like two scenes going on simultaneously.
Simultaneously, that's right, on the different levels. Exactly.
That would have been really cool.
One of the things we're not talking about that we should talk about, what did you think of Jeff Bridges?
I think it's fantastic that he appeared in this installment. I think it would have been incomplete without him. I thought that they gave him a very good look and aura, and he came across with the right level of gravitas. I'm not sure I could really explain what he's still doing because even kind of at the beginning, Jared Leto is like, "Are you real or are you here?" And he said
Yeah,
something like, "I'm only here in the sense that you're interacting with me,"
that's right. I'm here as a response to you.
which made it seem like he doesn't actually exist independently. But when someone wants to kind of call him up, he's kind of like this dormant file, but like he's available if you want to interact with him.
I think they underutilized him or used him in the wrong way.
I'm sure there was a lot of extra footage that kind of ended up on the cutting room floor. And I'm sure
Yeah,
that there
yeah.
was a lot of dialogue in terms of how he should be positioned. But I'll agree with you in the sense that there's a margin to improve the Jeff Bridges appearance. But I think overall, it wasn't a negative appearance. It was
Oh
relatively
no, you're right.
consistent, and they depicted him in a good way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Look, I think the person who got the shortest shaft was Gillian Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, she did. It would have been interesting to see if she was like when she was dying, if they could have like reconfigured her on the grid, right? As a way to kind of like save her
Right,
life.
right.
Like if the sun would have dragged her, to that middle of the floor and they both would have been like lasered onto the grid as a way to kind of save her. Or he just did it, for his mom kind of as a last ditch effort. I loved her character. I thought she was fantastic in this. Her character had a very limited emotional range,
Yeah.
but I thought she played the role super well. Not sure I loved her son as much.
No, Evan Peters was no bueno.
At the beginning, I was kind of behind him, when he was giving kind of the first presentation to like the board or the military personnel. But then towards the end, he kind of, they put, I think, too many tattoos. They made him a little bit too counterculture,
Yeah.
like sleeves rolled up, all these like heavy rings and bracelets. And I would have been happier if he would have been a little bit more slick and arrogant and not just kind of like the spoiled, son who's a little bit entitled,
Yeah.
Evan Peters, I don't have a problem with him, but I think I would have liked him to be a little bit more polished and
A little
less.
bit more corporate rather than tech.
Yeah. At the beginning, like his hair was like very well coiffed.
Yeah.
By the end, it was like all kind of curly in the forehead. And like, I just felt he was wearing like too much jewelry, too many tattoos creeping up his neck. I liked him when he was a little bit more polished and buttoned down and just like an arrogant kid CEO,
Yeah.
Anyway, but apart from that, I love the rest of the cast. Always have good things to say about Greta Lee. I was really happy with the movie. You're better at me, I think, of stripping my emotions away and highlighting some of the flaws of a film. Like you've got a better talent for that than I do. But my knee-jerk reaction coming out of the film was like, wow, I really enjoyed that. Like that was a fun ride. During the film, like I was super engaged, I was switched on, compared to some of the most recent stuff that we've seen.
Yeah.
Where I've been like disengaged, looking at my watch, checking my phone, wondering if I should get a refill of popcorn. Those films, most recently, One Battle After Another.
Yeah.
I've been antsy and unsatisfied with what I've been watching on the screen. I admit, Tron Ares is not a perfect film, but for me, it was just a really enjoyable big screen popcorn munching film. Like I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was the right length. I didn't feel like it shortchanged me. I liked all the characters. I have to say, generally I like Jared Leto, but Jared Leto was very likable in this film without being too assholish, His obsession with Depeche Mode, that's a Marvel type construct, right? In the good old days, Marvel was the king, the undisputed king of inserting that Depeche Mode reference slash joke, which is, it's not like a joke, ha ha, but it gives everybody levity and it just really brings a character into focus. And I thought that the way that Jared Leto picked up, the Depeche Mode, where he was kind of like this know-it-all computer, but at the same time recognized that there's some things that he just can't put his finger on it. But man, I like Depeche Mode. I thought that's the type of, inside joke slash reference that really gave this film some legs, and it made him a very likable character as Ares. I thought Athena played that role to the T. Perfect Athena. I really enjoyed the movie, but I agree with you. If there was some ways that it could be optimized, those do exist.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I don't want to make it sound like I didn't enjoy the movie. I did enjoy the movie. I just don't think I enjoyed it as much as you did.
No.
I'm still looking forward to the sequel. Assuming this movie does well enough to warrant one.
I agree with you. I really hope that it does well. I don't think this is $1 billion movie. To be honest, be a little bit surprised if it even hit 500 million. But I think this is a good 300 to 400 million movie. And I'd love to see a sequel that like really gets the Disney marketing machine behind it. And it's something like really wow that now this one takes place, on the grid, Leto, Greta Lee, the whole team.
Yeah.
All right, Pete, time for rankings, right?
That's right. What did you think?
I think this is a must-see in cinemas.
And I think this is a very strong wait for streaming.
Ooh. All right, my friend. Okay, that is it for today. Can you list off our YouTube and other social media creds so that folks can launch, give us feedback, agree with me, disagree with me, or tell us what they want to see in what seems to be a predestined sequel to Tron Ares.
Absolutely. Like this video, leave a comment below, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you know when the next episode of the Films and Stuff podcast drops for you.
That's exactly right. Pete, thank you. Listeners, thank you. We will see you next week, next episode, Films and Stuff podcast. Bye now.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.